To whom did you give the keys to your unconscious? Carl Jung warned that until you become aware of what you carry inside, the subconscious will direct your life, and you will call it destiny. But what happens when that destiny has been surgically designed by third parties to keep you submissive, productive, and emotionally dependent? Have you noticed that your biggest identity crises happen precisely when you stop being useful to the system or to your partner? Look at Julian. Behind his impeccable suit and his smile rehearsed for the quarterly report lives a man who has ceased to belong to himself. In the office, Julian is nothing more than the 402 code in a spreadsheet, a disposable figure that the corporation will replace without hesitation as soon as its productivity drops by 5%. But when he gets home, the outlook is no more encouraging. There, Julian becomes the emotional dumping ground of a couple who project their unresolved traumas and childhood shortcomings onto him. Who benefits from your fear of loneliness or your anxiety about not achieving goals that even you didn't choose? I congratulate you for being here, holding your gaze before this black mirror. While the rest of the mass consumes cheap dopamine to ignore its emptiness, you have chosen the path of raw introspection. You are part of an elite of awakened people who are no longer satisfied with the crumbs of a prefabricated reality. Your presence in this video is your first act of real sovereignty. Do not withdraw now, for comfort is the grave of the spirit. What I am going to give you today is not just information. It is a weapon of psychological precision. At the end of this tour, I'll reveal the best-kept secret about manipulating the collective shadow and how it's used to drain your life energy without you putting up any resistance. Get ready. The end is the coup de grace to your blindness. Have you ever stopped to observe how your most spontaneous decisions seem to follow a predictable script? In the professional realm, you think you're choosing your career, but you're only filling a utility gap that the market designed before you were born. Personally, you think you choose your partner, when in reality you are only reacting to biological impulses and childhood shortcomings. Don't you feel the humiliating feeling of being an actor who doesn't know the director of the play? You are being used as a piece on a board where the rules are written in your own blood. Julian believes that his new car is a reward for his effort, but it is only the bait that keeps him tied to a debt that forces him to smile at a boss he despises. In his bedroom, he allows his partner to ignore him, accepting crumbs of affection, because he fears that silence will reveal his own nullity. You are a processed resource, not a sovereign individual. Carl Jung explained that most men live in a state of mystical participation with the environment, where there is no distinction between the I and the manipulated mass. Look at Julius Caesar. Before crossing the Rubicon, he did not ask the Senate for permission or wait for external validation. He understood that the chessboard was rigged and decided to kick it to impose his own reality. In the modern world, this means to stop asking permission from the culture to be successful or loved. It means recognizing that if you don't design your own power structure, you will die building that of someone who doesn't even know your name. The awakened know that the board is an illusion, but an illusion that can kill you if you don't learn how to move the pieces. Pretty soon, you'll understand how to hack this system from the inside. Why do you feel that visceral fear of being the only one who doesn't laugh in the office meeting? Or of being the first to end a relationship that's clearly dead? Social engineering is not a hallway conspiracy. It's a collective shadow architecture designed for you to become your own jailer. In the professional realm, the system uses your archetypal need to belong to keep an eye on your own behavior, punishing you with anxiety if your productivity doesn't match that of the masses. Personally, you allow your partner to cripple your ambitions because the ancestral terror of being expelled from the tribe is stronger than your desire for freedom. Don't you see that your anguish is the lubricant that allows the social machinery to continue turning without squeaking? Look at Julian again. He agrees to work unpaid overtime because the parasite of corporate loyalty whispers to him that if he leaves at 5, he is a traitor to the team. When she gets home, she submits to the whims of a narcissistic partner because she prefers a shared war to the peace of solitude. Julian is a bee who thinks he chooses his flowers, but he's only following the trail of pheromones that the hive planted in his brain. Your fear of isolation is the joystick with which strangers play with your destiny. Carl Jung explained that the collective unconscious contains inherited patterns of behavior that, if not integrated, possess us as modern demons. When you blend in with the crowd to avoid conflict, you are letting the archetype of the eternal adolescent make the decisions for you, always looking for a mother, the company, or a father, the partner, who validates you. Cyrus the Great, the Persian genius, understood this better than anyone. He did not chain conquered peoples, but allowed them to keep their temples in exchange for taxes. He knew that a man who believes himself free under someone else's structure is much more profitable than a slave who dreams of rebellion. Today, you are the subject of an invisible Cyrus. To apply the strategy of the awakened, you must recognize that the hive is an optical illusion. True power comes when you stop fearing the emptiness of exclusion and begin to enjoy the height that can only be reached by being alone. If you're not willing to be the outcast of the office or the callous of the family, you'll never be the sovereign of your own life. The power structure that keeps you docile depends on you never looking under the rug. But we're about to fully pull it up.
Have you ever wondered why you feel more exhausted after a day of digital leisure than after a day of physical work? It is not fatigue. It is the result of looting. Your emotions are not the sacred refuge of your intimacy. They are the oil that feeds the attention economy. In the professional field, you are required to put on the shirt and show enthusiasm, not for efficiency, but so that your employer can extract emotional surplus value from your loyalty. Personally, you look for the dopamine of validation in dating apps or social networks because the system has turned love into an inventory of constant availability. Doesn't it disgust you to be a simple biological battery connected to a consumer machine that feeds on your anxiety to be someone? Watch Julian. He spends his lunch break discussing in a forum about the ethics of a company that he doesn't even know exists, while his partner, by his side, reviews the profile of his former lovers, looking for a spark of comparison that makes her feel alive. Both are miners of their own misery, chipping stone in the quarry of algorithms for others to build mansions. Your indignation is the dividend of a shareholder that you will never know. Jung spoke of the projection of the shadow on external objects. Today, that projection has been automated. The algorithm not only reads your tastes, it reads your inferiority complexes and sells you the cure in comfortable installments of attention. Machiavelli taught in The Prince that a shrewd ruler must keep the people busy with spectacles and novelties so that they do not perceive the weight of the yoke. In the 21st century, the spectacle happens inside your pocket. To apply the strategy of the awakened, you must become a ghost for the system. Stop giving away your emotional reaction to every stimulus. When you stop being emotionally predictable, you become useless to the market and, for the first time, dangerous to power. Are you aware that your internal illiteracy is the competitive advantage of those around you? Blindness to your own mental processes is not a passive weakness. It is an active invitation to the colonization of your will. In your career, if you ignore your childish need for approval, any boss with predatory instinct will manipulate you using praise as a leash and criticism as a whip. In your love life, if you don't know the map of your childhood wounds, you will become the narcissistic supply of someone who knows how to touch your insecurities with the precision of a surgeon. Doesn't it hurt you to know that your lack of introspection is the subsidy that allows others to live without working in their own shadow? Julian prides himself on his resilience by accepting insults disguised as feedback without noticing that his tolerance of abuse is only the symptom of a self-esteem that was never claimed. At home, he apologizes for mistakes he didn't make, just to avoid the stinging silence of a couple who use contempt as a tool of control. Your lack of boundaries is the formal invitation to your own destruction. Carl Jung warned that encounters with oneself are the most unpleasant, and that is why the crowd flees towards utility. You prefer to be used by others rather than face the emptiness of not knowing who you are outside of your social function. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. But how can you have quality thoughts if they are not even your own? The emperor dominated the world because he did not allow any external impressions to alter his inner citadel. Today, being an awakened means building that citadel in the middle of a market that wants to tear down your walls to sell you rubble. Your ignorance is their benefit. If the weight of this truth is beginning to become unbearable, it is because your ego is dying to make way for your essence. Show that you are not just another algorithm. Write the word sovereign in the comments. Only those who leave a record of their awakening can claim their place on the board. How many of the people you call friends would be with you if you lost your status or your ability to hear them tomorrow? In your inner circle, most bonds are not soul connections, but contracts of mutual utility where you are the provider of care, validation, or stability. Don't you feel the cold emptiness that is left after a dinner where you were everyone's free therapist, but no one asked about the fire that devours your own spirit? You are surrounded by mirrors that only reflect you when you shine for them. Julian attends a wedding that doesn't interest him and spends the money he needed for his personal project simply because social commitment is a parasite that feeds on his inability to say no. Meanwhile, her partner demands that she change her hobbies because they don't fit with the image of a successful couple that she wants to project on Instagram. Your relationships are not refuges. They are fields of energy extraction. Jung identified this as the inflation of the group. The individual dissolves into the mass of mediocre friendships so as not to face the loneliness of his own shadow. There is a brutal contrast between real friendship and shadow camaraderie, where friends come together only to validate their vices and grievances with each other, making sure that no one in the group wakes up and leaves them behind. Julius Caesar knew that loyalty is a currency that is devalued if not policed. He surrounded himself with men whose ambitions he knew perfectly well, using them as levers of control. In your modern life, applying this means auditing your agenda. If a friend only shows up when they need a favor or an ear, they're not a friend. They're a consumer of your life. The awakened prefer the desert of solitude to the swamp of false company.
The final revelation about who has been stealing your time is yet to manifest. Have you noticed how silence is used as a weapon of mass destruction in your closest relationships? There is an invisible manipulation tactic called gaslighting, which is nothing more than an attempt to burn your sanity over a low heat. It is not always a shout. It's often a look of disappointment when you try something new, or a retreat of affection calculated to make you feel guilty for seeking your own independence. It's when someone makes you doubt your own perception of reality, telling you that you're crazy or that you're exaggerating just because you dared to point out a lack of respect. Doesn't it suffocate you to know that your home, the place where you should be yourself, is the battlefront where you must wear the most masks so as not to be emotionally punished? Julian finds himself apologizing for being successful because his partner makes him believe that his ambition is selfishness and that his progress is destroying the relationship. In contrast, his supposed best friends tell him that he has changed, using nostalgia as a chain to return him to the hole of mediocrity where they still live. Your environment doesn't want you to heal. They want you to remain the fragment that fits into their broken puzzle. If you grow up, the mirror you give them gives them back an image of their own stagnation, and they won't forgive you. The most ominous truth is this: no one is using you without your secret permission. You allow yourself to be manipulated by gaslighting because you are terrified of the absolute sovereignty of your own life. You've turned your friends and partners into your tyrants, so you don't have to be your own judge. The system didn't chain you. You handed the keys to mediocre people to feel like you belonged to something, even if that something was your own emotional grave. Jung said that the privilege of a life is to become who one really is. But that process requires betraying the expectations of others. Machiavelli advised that it is necessary to learn not to be good in a world of wolves. And in love, the wolf usually wears wounded sheep's clothing. For the awakened one, this means that your primary allegiance is to your own process of individuation, whatever the cost. If your circle can't stand your most powerful version and tries to confuse your judgment, their departure from your life is not a loss. It's a cleansing of parasites necessary for your survival. You have reached the precipice of consciousness. The system is counting on you to forget this as soon as you close the tab, to return to the arms of those who cancel you. If you're ready to stop being someone else's dumping ground and reclaim your throne, comment on the word conscious. Let this be the record of your definitive break with the past. The board now belongs to you.